It's time again for another risk and reward, but this time I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Instead of focusing on just one exotic weapon, I'm going to be doing 3 different weapons because they are actually all easy to get from the kiosk, which basically means you only need to grind up some resources in order to get them. So the challenge for this risk and reward video will be from their catalyst instead, as all of these weapons become much better with them. But before we get into that, allow me to quickly tell you what I mean by risk and reward. This video series is designed around judging exotic weapons and making sure that they are worth the risk and also the reward at the end of it. Both the risk and the reward will be getting a score out of a total of 5. A risk score of 5 means that the exotic weapon is going to be quite difficult to obtain, and a reward score of 5 means that the weapon is going to be very useful, that you'll likely have it on you at all times, if not most of the time. With these type of videos, I won't be considering the meta at all for the scores, because otherwise this is going to be changing every single season and will always be inaccurate, so they're not going to be included whatsoever. So the scores I'm going to give are going to reflect the general toughness of the ways to get these weapons, and the reward score is going to reflect how useful the weapon is. The first weapon of the 3 is going to be my personal favourite, which is the Witherhoard. Witherhoard is a special kinetic grenade launcher that instead fires a ball of blight which will cover the ground in a pool, which will damage any enemies that step inside of it. Another great perk of Witherhoard is if you hit an enemy directly, they will take damage periodically for 25 ticks, and if they are killed by this tick damage, a pool of blight will drop where the enemy died. The main reason I like this weapon so much is because it is brilliant as a support for both ad clear and additional boss damage if you're not running an exotic. There is even an added bonus that if you have a friend running with a horde as well, you can actually double stack the damage by having one person shoot the floor where the enemy is standing and the other one hitting the enemy directly. To get this bad boy, you need to head over to the exotic kiosk in the tower where you can purchase this beast for an exotic cipher, 100,000 glimmer, 150 legendary shards, and 1 ascendant shard. To newer players, the exotic cipher can be retrieved from your friendly neighborhood Zur, who appears in random locations on the weekend. I would personally consult with the website Where is Zur, which is linked below, but you could always watch one of the hundreds of streamers or creators who cover them literally every week to see where he is. But back to the Witherhoard. Because it's in its current state, it is actually missing a vital feature with its catalyst, and despite it being one hell of a grind to complete, I promise it is definitely worth the reward. You can start the catalyst with our resident Banshee 44, but then it will require you to go on a fierce grind, which means you have to kill 100 guardians in the Crucible or Gambit with grenade launchers. You also need to get 200 multi-kills with the grenade launchers, and also obtain 300 filthy Lacree. One very important note is that you can do this with any grenade launcher, so if you have a personal favourite, whether it's heavy or special, go nuts with it. Filthy Lacree is the big grind, however, because 300 of it means you will need to complete around 100 core activities. Yeah, literally 100 clears of strikes, crucible, and gambit in any mixture you choose. The blessing for this though is that you don't need to have the Witherhoard equipped, so it will just complete itself over time. When that's completed, just head back to Banshee and you'll have a shiny new catalyst to use. But now I can talk about the risk for this thing. Being as Witherhoard is a kiosk item, and the only real difficulty, if you can call it that, is from grinding, I would give this a 1, because it is not actually challenging to complete. It just requires you to be very patient to get all the kills, and then going on to get all the filthy Lacree. But what is actually the reward for completing the catalyst? Well, in the footage that you're probably seeing right now, my Witherhoard magically reloads itself. Yes, the Witherhoard Catalyst actually gives it auto-loading, which makes it perfect to swap through weapons to maximise damage, and was particularly useful to me against the Caretaker in Battle of the Disciple. But the reward score for Witherhoard with its Catalyst is going to be a very nice 4. It can be debated if this is one of the best weapons in the game, but is undeniably useful in PvE content and a massive headache to deal with in PvP content, which overall makes it a very useful weapon to get and use. Moving on to the second weapon I'm featuring today, it's going to be the trusty damage busting sniper known as Izanagi's Burden. Again, from the exotic kiosk, you can expect to spend an exotic cipher, 150,000 glimmer, 250 legendary shards, and 2 ascendant shards. One of the more expensive weapons in the kiosk, but there is a good reason for that. Izanagi's Burden has been a staple for DPS builds and is almost always taken into day 1 raids, because if you hold down your reload button or whatever key it is, it will consume all the rounds in the current magazine and become a very powerful single shot. When you become skilled at doing this reload from an empty mag, you can chain it together with auto-loading rockets for devastating effects. But again, we need to discuss the catalyst. In terms of this, getting the catalyst is an absolute must for this weapon, because it will provide you a direct boost to the damage it kicks out when you're consuming the rounds into a single shot. To get it, you just need to run some strikes, gambit, or even crucible, and eventually it will just drop by random chance. But now you're gonna have to put in some work to actually complete this, because you will need to get 500 kills with it. So find your favourite farming spot and get to work, because you'll be there a while. Or just run random activities and force yourself to use Izanagi's Burden, whatever works for you. Much like the Witherhoard, the risk is not very high at all. In fact, I'm actually tempted to give it 0, but due to the fact that you still have to put in some work and grind out the catalyst by quite a bit, I'll give it a 1 like the Witherhoard. As for the reward score, as much as I like Izanagi's Burden, I actually have to score it a bit lower than the Witherhoard with a 3. That's just solely because Izanagi's Burden only works with certain setups, and you'll have far better options to use if you switch up your loadout. Like if you're running auto-loading linear fusion rifles and Izanagi's Burden, It's just not a good idea because you'll waste so much time doing it. But with that being said, you cannot deny its raw power and being able to deal huge bursts of damage with its ability. The third and final exotic weapon on the list is going to be Sleeper Simulant, an absolute powerhouse of a linear fusion rifle that kicks out a lot of damage. Not only that, the shots it fires also penetrates through multiple enemies and bounces off surfaces to cause even more mayhem. But this does also mean that you can unalive yourself if you fire this in an enclosed space, so be careful of that. But the modest price of one exotic cipher, 125,000 glimmer, 200 legendary shards and 1 ascendant shard, you can also get one of these and disintegrate random fallen on the Cosmodrome, just like me. But naturally, it has a catalyst to complete which can be retrieved from completing Vanguard operations, but Nightfalls also seem to increase the chance of getting it. When you do have it, just simply annihilate 300 poor souls and you will have it completed and ready to go. What does it do though? Well, the charge time becomes faster at a slightly lower damage amount, but the increase in speed makes it worth it. On top of that, you will actually be able to carry more ammo around for it, making the onslaught so much better. The risk score for this one is again going to be 1. You know what, I might just have to declare everything in the kiosk as a 1 at this rate, because it's just not difficult. Anyway, it's a 1 because really you just need to get it, complete some strikes or nightfalls for the catalyst, and then remove 300 creatures from existence. Not exactly the toughest thing in the game to do. Reward, however, I would actually put this up with Witherhoard as a 4, because Sleeper Simulant is a solid damage weapon choice for most activities, and it seems to have stayed consistently good despite the changes to the sandbox over the years. But that is it for this risk and reward video. Pretty odd doing 3 in 1 for a video, but they're all kiosk weapons, so yeah, not much in particular going on with them to be honest. But if you guys would like me to cover any exotic weapons in particular, then by all means let me know in the comments down below and I'll be happy to cover it. But as always, remember to like and subscribe down below, and I shall see you all in the next video.